So you already know the backstory to this. I mean, Peter Obi congratulated Gowon on his 90th birthday, and lots of things were written. But a lot of people, especially from the southeast, took exception to his write-up, insisting that it was against the spirit of Ndibo and the spirit of Biafra. What's your take on it?
Incidentally, I'm one of those who are incensed. That is the highest degree of offense. By Gowon's own account, 5 million. He said Gowon said in public space that they had to kill 5 million people to keep Nigeria one. Most accounts point to 3.5 million and all of that, but Gowon himself said that they had to kill 5 million people. And Peter Obi has urinated on the grave of those 5 million Easterners that were killed in that genocide. Peter Obi is insulting the collective intelligence of the Igbo just because of some narrow pursuit, personal pursuit. Peter Obi wants to be president of Nigeria that does not exist. And the matter is made even far worse by the fact that the constitution that has rendered us slaves in our homeland and rendered the rest of indigenous Nigerians slaves in the hands of the caliphate that imposed it by brigandage. Peter Obi started his campaign, his presidential campaign in 2000 and, just ahead of this 2023 presidential election. He started his campaign by saying that the constitution of Nigeria is not the problem. That constitution was imposed as a victory charter from that war of genocide by the very Murtala Muhammad who initiated the genocide 29th July 1966. I want us to connect it to see the gravity of what has been done, because a demand will be made on Peter Obi to apologize to the Igbo worldwide. And the person speaking is a survivor from that genocide. At the time the war ended, I was 3 years old. If one person is known to the world as having presided over that genocide, it is Yakubu Gowon. If Peter Obi was some kind of youth, you could ignore him, but he's not. I'm sure and I'm certain that he's a bit older than myself, and he's not a stranger to the things that had happened, particularly the question of the constitutional arrangements. If these things were things of the past, things that have gone away, of course, we will say, let's forgive and forget and move on. But it hasn't gone nowhere. It's in fact worse. That war that many thought ended in 1970 did not end in 1970. It was continued unabated. It only moved to the economic front.
But let me specifically ask you, do you think that General Gowon needs to apologize for the war that happened between
every day from 1970, every day from January of 1970, Yakubu Gowon was in depth of that apology. He was, even this day, he's still alive now, thank goodness. God kept, on the day I had to challenge him on this matter. I had to stop him in the middle of his speech. He was on his speech, he was speaking. And then, because he lied again, I disrupted his speech and told him to his face that I'm happy that God has kept him alive to witness the collapse of that Nigeria that he and his co-murderers built on the foundation of Igbo blood, and that he will be alive to witness the burial ceremony of that. The event collapsed. Let anybody who can investigate it. Of course, he had this all those permanent secretaries, those super permanent secretaries of the time, Ishekiri ones amongst them, who were present at that. Let everybody find out whether the day Ishekiri launched their heritage book at the Institute of International Affairs in Victoria Land, Lagos, whether Tony Nadi did not disrupt Yakubu Gowon in the midst of his false presentation, in the midst of his lies. So that's how it has come to where he he remains unapologetic. The constitution they imposed as victory charter from that war is now tormenting everybody to death. Ijo is dying. Yoruba is dying. Middle belt, his own middle belt is being decapitated. Everything is upside down. The development that was happening and happening very well in the eastern region of Emma, in the western region of Awolowo, in the northern region of Ahmadu Bello. How did we lose that federation? Oh yes, it's a Ironsi that changed everything. No, Ironsi was decree number 34 of 1966, did not touch the structure of the Federation of Nigeria. Everything you are told in Nigeria is a lie. When you look around, you will see the evidence of what happened. You will then begin to imagine the intention for building everything on falsehood. Look at how that Nigeria has become. 230 million people with no direction, selling 3 million barrels of crude oil, and a bunch of I don't even have the kind of word that could describe them, sitting in Abuja, pretending they have a country. The Nigeria we are complaining about is the unitary Nigeria defined by this unitary constitution of 1999. Nigeria, the federation, died in 1966 and was buried in 1967. On the 27th of May, 1967, the day Yakubu Gowon, by decree number 14, fractured the 4 regions that were federating into 12 states. That was the day they buried that Federation of Nigeria as agreed in Lancaster House. Everything they had done since that time, all the federal governments of that time have been illicit to this date. And when people like us who commit this number of years, 25 from 1999, 25 years, with all of what went on, the very people were so incensed with what Peter Obi has done. Does Peter Obi know about this matter more than Ojukwu? Yes, Ojukwu will receive Gowon in his residence. You know, they were 2 old men at the time. But I had the privilege of dealing with the principal actors on the 2 sides of that war. Remember, Enohoro, who was the chief convener of the Pronaco, was the spokesman of the federal government throughout that war. Many do not know that Enohoro was a schoolmate to the then British Prime Minister, so they relied on him. Enohoro spent the last 7 years of his life trying to work out with us how to resolve the issues that arose from that time. That is what has become NINAS, from when it was Pronaco to when it became MNN, that went to court in 2007. It fell on me to file that suit. Does Peter Obi know more about this matter than Ojukwu that became one of my plaintiffs in that suit, challenging the legitimacy of the 1999 Constitution? Does Peter Obi know more about this matter than Sisi Ono, the father of Bianca Ono, that was one of my plaintiffs? These are men, these are patriots that gave everything to salvage the people, their own people. But why would somebody from that territory be so insensitive for whatever pursuit to now, as whether he's trying to present himself as acceptable, as approved by the enforcers of unitary Nigeria?
Is it possible to have some closure to the issues around the Nigeria-Biafra war? Will the wounds ever heal? Will the wounds ever heal? What should be done to assuage Igbo for what has happened between 1967 to 1970 and the things that happened afterwards, the abandoned property and every other thing that happened, and confiscation of their monies?
The thing that needs to happen is that the truth has to be told, and then the remediation which NINAS has placed on the table. NINAS being Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination, which encapsulates, involve all the indigenous nationalities across Nigeria. The only ones who are not indigenous, we all know. They are the ones killing in Abeokuta, killing in Boko, killing in Pankshin, and elsewhere, in Boni and Port Harcourt, in Warri and Ughelli. The ones who do not own, in terms of ancestral land, any square inch of the territory the world knows as Nigeria, the Fulani. The problem is that it began with the British that brought them in to hold their empire for permanent control. Let us accept what happened and stop lying and stop falsehood and stop propaganda. Let us then accept that the constitution imposed as victory charter from that war cannot remain basis of the union. Let us then proceed to how we submit our sovereignty into one political union, like Bola Ige was always talking about, and the terms of being in that political union. Those are the two things that will have to happen. And the beginning of it is to decommission this Constitution of Death, the 1999 Constitution. Everybody wants a union of sanctity of life. Everybody wants a union of equality of men. We then begin to talk about all the other equities. The structure that will bring us back to being a federation, the structure and the terms of union that will put us in charge of our affairs, our local affairs. And then we unionize with our sovereignties in our hand, the same way Germany and France and Portugal are doing European Union. You had when Serake Dixon, senator, that was governor in Bayelsa, you had him saying the same thing, that we are living in a fraud. The constitution is a fraud that has made everything impossible for those who should have been building that Nigeria. The Nigeria you have now is a disputed project. If you want to know the nature of that dispute, you go to the preamble to that constitution that lied that we the people, that is we the constituent component, the sovereign, the owners of the sovereignty, we the Ijo, we the Ogoni, we the Igbo, we the Yoruba, we the Chief, have solemnly and firmly resolved to live in unity as indivisible and indissoluble. That is falsehood, that is self-evident, because no meeting was called. How did we arrive at the Constitution? I'm telling you what is wrong with Nigeria, and if we are not going to solve it together, those who are choking from the atrocities of unitary Nigeria are going to take unilateral actions, and it is called self-determination. Nigeria is like a disputed construction site where you have more than 75%. Look at the map behind me so that I can understand what I'm talking about. You have more than 75%, and with the Hausa that is now speaking up for themselves, because they're also indigenous people, Hausa and Kanuri. They own the land, but the Fulani jumped into the space and turned it into hell for them. But they now see that if that constitution is brought down, they will be the one discussing how that portion of Nigeria will be part of any union that may emerge, whether as a proper federation or a confederation or the emergence of independent units of successor sovereign states.